All right, it's 10 a.m., so we'll go ahead and begin the Tuesday, June 14th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Denison. Go ahead. Looks like we do have a quorum present, so we can proceed. So next we move into the public comment section. We did receive two comments. Melvin Caruth and John Van Herpen. If you want, you can either speak now or you can wait, because those will be public hearings, the two items that you're speaking on. So if you want, you can speak now or you can wait till we go into that particular matter. It's up to you.
I'm trying to gather more information, so I'll wait for it.
Okay. All right. I'll wait as well. Okay. All right. Any other on the public comment section? No other cards were received. Okay. All right. And we will go ahead and move into the consent agenda. Any discussion for the items in the consent agenda? No, sir. Any questions? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Consent agenda is approved. All right, we will now move into the public hearing section. And on any of these items that are public hearings, if you do want to speak on that particular matter, if you would, when you approach, please state your name and address for the record, please. And also, we'd like to limit the comments to 3 minutes per speaker, please. All right. That being said, we'll move into item 4A.
Thank you, sir. Item 4A, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and take action on a replat of the GW Banks Edition, lots 1 through 4, block 28, located at the corner of West Heron Street and South Chandler Avenue, case number 2022-047RP. This is an aerial of that subject property, and this is the current zoning. It's zoned single-family 7.5, and this is what the plat currently looks like. The applicant is requesting to replat the property into 4 lots, with 2 fronting on Heron Street and 2 fronting on Chandler Street. And all of these lots do conform to the development standards for that zoning district. Applicant is going to construct single-family homes on this property. Water will need to be extended. Sewer is available and all easements are in place per the plat. Staff recommends approval of the request. I'm present for any questions, and I believe the applicant is as well.
All right. Any questions of staff? Would the applicant like to add anything?
Just moving it around for land purposes. Excavation purposes.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this item. Any other discussion, comments, or questions among the commission members? That being the case, I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the proposed final plat, case number 2022-043FP.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That motion is approved. Move into item 4B.
Receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request for a conditional use permit for an aggregate sales yard on approximately 11.87 acres located at 2827 Ray Drive in the LC Alexander Survey A-41 and the William R. Carruthers Survey A-213, Zone Light Industrial, case number 2022-050 CEP. This is an aerial of the subject property with Ray Drive to the south, Union Pacific, the rail yard just to the east of US 75 is where this property is located. And it is currently zoned light industrial. And this is the proposed site plan for that aggregate yard. While the property is zoned light industrial, for the purpose of an aggregate sales yard, the applicant has to request a CUP that has to be recommended by this body and then approved by City Council. Staff does have a couple of issues for consideration that we would like for y'all to consider. Proximity to residential development. As you can tell from the zoning aerial right here just to the south, all of that is residential property, and it all has been developed in a residential manner. Ray Drive separates the rail yard from a residential neighborhood to the south, and the closest point of the leased aggregate yard property is approximately 160 feet from Ray Drive. There is a substantial tree line and lower elevation that will provide some visual screening and separate from the residential uses. However, I think the elevation does tend to go up the further east you go. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a significant drop off right there where the tree line is, but it does tend to elevate as you go towards the east. And if I'm flipping through these slides too fast, just let me know. Traffic access and infrastructure improvements. While the rail yard does have a driveway onto Ray Drive, the applicant has agreed to utilize only Juanita Drive for all vehicular access to the aggregate yard. This is to prevent any access or additional truck traffic on the Ray Drive or Morton Street residential streets. Those are pretty narrow streets as they are, and so we have asked the applicant to just utilize Juanita Drive in order to get their trucks out to 75. Juanita connects to 84 from this property. With that being said, Juanita Drive is narrow and in poor condition, and if the aggregate yard is approved, the applicant will enter into a development agreement with the city to improve the street. Just so you guys have an idea of what that looks like. Right here on the eastern portion of the property, where you kind of see the little, what they like to call it, what is it, a pig run, a pig trail or something like that, it's a little drive to the east, that does connect to Juanita and then connects to 84. Environmental considerations, dust, noise, and stormwater runoff are issues that must be managed. For this type of use, the applicant plans to address these through the use of water trucks, dust control agents, and noise reduction backup alarms. The operation must acquire and maintain permits for stormwater management as well as other operation permits from TCEQ. Just to reiterate, they're requesting a CEP for the aggregate sales yard, and the property is a part of the larger Union Pacific rail yard. And these aggregate materials would arrive via train and then further distributed via truck from Juanita to 84 to 75 or wherever. With the residential development to the south of Ray Drive, if the commission believes that this is an appropriate use, staff recommends the following requirements should be adopted as part of the CUP request. 1, acquisition and compliance with all required state and local permits. 2, continuous abatement of dust and noise related to the aggregate yard operations. 3, maintenance of the existing tree line and vegetation located north of Ray Drive. This will help maintain a sound barrier as well as a visual barrier from the residential properties. All customer and employee traffic shall utilize Juanita Drive for access to and from the property. No access is allowed via Morton Street or Ray Drive. An approval of a development agreement with the city for improvements to Juanita Drive. Present for any questions, and so are the applicants.
I guess my only concern would be on the dust management. Is that going to be something that's just temporarily until something's put in place, so you don't have to manage it any longer, or is it going to be just going to manage it all the time?
I think the applicant can probably answer that better than I can.
Okay.
Before the applicant speaks,
Sure.
I have several additional things.
Okay.
The application acknowledges that there will be problems with dust, noise, traffic, stormwater abatement, not to mention the fact this is contiguous to a residential neighborhood. The staff points out that there is available land in the area that's zoned for the same purposes. So for me, all of that needs to be addressed. I'd like to know where those other zone sites are, for instance.
I'm assuming that we're just discussing the entire area of the Union Pacific Rail Yard is zone light industrial. I don't know if those areas have been looked at by the applicant, but where the rail yard currently sits is all zone light industrial. They would have to go through the same process they're going through now, but there could be property that is further away from the residential developments.
That's exactly
Okay.
my concern and question.
I could answer that.
Thank you.
There are other industrial parks in Denison. There's no rail service to any other industrial park. That's the difference in this
So I'm Kevin Stone. My address right now is 1503 LBJ Freeway, Suite 400 in Dallas, Texas.
Sean Foley, same business address, and my home address is 406 Gifford Drive, Capel, Texas. Kevin's between.
I'm homeless right now, so I'm just moving up from San Antonio. So in regards to the dust abatement, it is ongoing. It's for the life of the facility. Basically, the way it's stated in TCQ's regulations is we are not allowed to have any visible emissions leave our property at any point in time. So we monitor that every single day. If we do see any issues, we get it addressed. We can use dust suppressant chemicals. If we have continuous issues, we potentially might have to pave, but it's just based site-to-site conditions.
We have a number of these facilities throughout DFW. This is an issue we deal with daily, and we take pride in dealing with it very well. We have water trucks on site at all times to deal with dust, and then also chemical abatement, some additives we can put down to the haul roads as an additional. And then, of course, if that doesn't do it, then there's additional items we can put in place. But in our experience, the water trucks and the chemical additives on the haul trucks deals with the dust.
Yeah,
And we take pride in it.
Yeah, it seems to take care of it.
With the concern about noise abatement, we talk about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Would you speak to that? Is that absolutely necessary?
No, well, by the nature of our business, we support a number of infrastructure projects for development, and it's mostly TxDOT projects require deliveries at night. So that's where you get the 24-hour piece of it. We feel that this rail yard is a great spot. It's zone light industrial. It's with the business that the UP conducts there, and we do unload trains, but that is done during daylight hours for safety reasons. And then as far as other noise, we use white noise backup alarms, so it's really just contained to the site and people directly behind the mobile equipment for safety reasons. We don't have those large backup alarms you sometimes hear on projects around here where you can hear the beep from, in front of the loader 200 yards away. It's white noise backup alarms. The technology's getting much better about that. We also operate other rail yards near residential areas, and we do not receive a lot of noise complaints. Not that we never receive noise complaints, but we do address it. We take great pride in being a good member of the community. We want the city of Denison and the residents in the local area to be proud to have Martin Moretta there. I think the city of Salina, if you ask them, they're very proud to have us as a member of their community.
My question, I guess you've discussed some of these additional requirements that the city has proposed with them. Is that correct?
Yes, we met with city manager Bobby Atterbury last week. We've contracted a geotech firm, DNS, to do a pavement design for Juanita Drive. We plan on improving that. We plan to get into a development agreement with the city that encompasses those improvements. We're send some initial budget estimates out to contractors to quote so we can get an idea of how much that's going to cost and we can put in the development agreement. But
my question is, where are you going to put the ready mix plant?
so
Any plans at this point?
So our initial, this is phase one. Phase one is putting the aggregate yard in with the development that you all have going on up here in Denison. We think it's a great location and perfect time, not to long haul the rock from southern Oklahoma or Wise County. The ready mix yard, the ready mix plant, would go in phase two, which would be directly to the east, the next 10 acres to the east.
And this will be just concrete aggregate, coarse aggregates, right? You won't be stockpiling sand.
We'll bring sand. It'll mostly be coarse aggregate. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, sand is used extensively in construction.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the,
Like concrete sand, most of that comes from, we have a plant right up in Bells.
So I'm not really familiar, but what are like your regulations and controls on air quality, how does that work for your industry?
So is this just in regards to the aggregate plant or a concrete batch plant?
Well, let's just concentrate on this one particular location right here that we're talking about today.
So then on the aggregate.
They got to meet state regulations.
Okay.
Yeah, so TCQ is the regulatory authority that's over our sites anytime we operate. And basically, they keep it pretty simple for us. Basically, you're not allowed to have any visible emissions leave your property. You have to water your stockpiles, your yards, your roads, and then we have to do continuous inspections of them. Now, when you operate a concrete batch plant, it's a lot different. There's a lot more to it.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of the applicant at this point? All right. Okay.
Great.
Is there anything else that y'all want to add at this point to it?
I don't think so. Unless,
I'm just talking about as far as the applicant, and then we'll go to the other. I just didn't know.
Touch base on your storm design. We did survey that it is draining to the northeast. All of it does gradually go. That's where it all falls. There's a small little creek there, so it does go down and then continues to go down. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna see if they wanted to add anything else, and then we'll let you come up. and speak.
No, we appreciate everyone's time. We're very excited to be join the Denison community, and we think you'll be very happy to have us here. We're very involved in the community. And if go down the street to Salina, I think they'd say the same.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we may bring it back up to answer some questions.
Sure.
I'll let-
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. All right. All right. What do y'all want to come? Either Mr. Kruth or Mr. Van Herpen?
My name is Melvin Caruth, live at 1131 Davis Avenue, Denison, Texas. Opposed to this for the noise levels, opposed to it based on the fact that I'm a cancer survivor with COPD, and I don't care how much water, the humidity and stuff like that. In Texas, the dust is going to settle in the neighborhoods. No guarantee, even though it says it will be enforced, that Juanita will be used. And if I will, I've got pictures of what Suncoast has done to the road, using that little access off of Morton Street onto the access road. Not only has Suncoast destroyed the road, they took out a fire hydrant that was never replaced. So if you want to see the pictures, I'll be glad to show you. They were taken yesterday afternoon. I'll leave that up to y'all.
We'll take your word for that.
Okay, what the road looks like. So, with that being said, that's where I'm at on it.
My name is John Van Herp, and I live at 2518 West Walker Street. A couple of concerns we have is with traffic, obviously, Ray Road, they've already built a bunch of houses and all that kind of stuff, and there is an access way at the curve in the road. And my curiosity is are they going to go ahead and just access that anyway, just maybe for smaller vehicle traffic? We already have a huge traffic issue in that area. With speedings and through roads, I've been trying to get stop signs, et cetera, for years now. So we've already got a huge traffic issue in that general area. We've already added a lot more population. If that, I mean, if you want to use Juanita onto 84, I don't have a really big problem with that. But if that little access way into Ray Road gets opened up to any kind of traffic, man, you're gonna have a lot of mad people. We're not happy about the new development, obviously, and I get that it's going to happen, and you know the world grows and there's more people. The second question I have is, I heard you say that this is going to be not just an aggregate plant, but also a ready mix plant.
Well, I think eventually it could be, they could add that, but that's not part of this.
Okay, so there'd be another hearing around that. Okay,
That's
and thirdly, based on what they said, I'm really concerned about the chemicals that they're using. That's really close to Lake Texoma, and a lot of that stuff can get into the water table. We've already got enough crap in our water. So my concern is, are the the chemicals that they're using environmentally friendly, what are the chemicals they're gonna use for dust suppression? What's that all about? So my bigger concerns, you know, is the water. The noise really doesn't bother me because the trains run all night long anyway, and we just hear the horns and the tracks and everything else, so that's not that big of a deal. And during the day, I don't see it's gonna be that, I mean, there's always traffic, but those are my two main concerns, is the access to that area from Ray Road and what kind of chemicals they're gonna be using.
Let's see if the applicants want to come back up and address some of those questions for us.
Sure.
Yeah, if y'all don't mind addressing the, I guess, you know, as far as the chemicals, and then how you would basically enforce, you know, limiting the access to just Juanita versus having the trucks come in on Ray or through Morton, one of those other.
Sure. We'll take the traffic one first, and then I'll turn it over to Kevin for the chemicals. The traffic one, I know exactly what you're talking about. We will physically block that off to not allow traffic through there. And to exit out by the Suncore side, which I believe is on the west side of the property, we put up physical barriers for that as well, and then we'll direct truck traffic out of there. There's once the trucks get in the habit of coming in off of Juanita Drive, that's just the way they'll keep performing, but we'll put physical barriers in place, and then also monitor it with our site personnel and supervisors on site. So.
All right. As for the chemicals that we'll be using, the Martin Marietta has a very strong sustainability program, so all of the chemicals that we do use, if we need to use them, it's very rare because oftentimes it's just water. They go through a huge vetting process through our legal team, through TCQ, our environmental department, and they are environmentally friendly if we do have to use them, but it's very rare.
Ms. York, would it be appropriate for me to ask Mr. Kai questions that relate to economic development? Is that appropriate in this environment?
As it relates to this specific plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, as long as you stay on topic with the agenda.
Gotcha.
Mr. Kyle, you want to come up? Please limit it to just this. I know you want to speak about everything else going on in Denison.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kai, my question is
Yes, ma'am.
in the colloquial, what's in it for us? One, we're gonna sell a lot of water. We're gonna get a road improved at someone else's expense.
Correct.
Additionally,
Well, the need for aggregate material and the construction that's coming up here is, I think, important to the overall growth of the area. Secondly, aggregate is taxed, sales tax, so there's potential of somewhere approximately $100,000 sales tax to be collected by the city. But mainly it's the aggregate and the supply of that for all the construction that we're seeing in North Texas. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just state your name and address.
Yeah, Chase Hall, 455 Oak Ridge Road in Denison. To speak to what you're saying, on top of Texas construction, we're building multiple homes behind Home Depot, and it's a huge need currently. So, I mean, my vote doesn't count, but I'm all for it. We need it. I mean, we've got multiple different yards that we have to use because of how much sand's going out, how much rock's going out, and to have another one in Denison would be greatly beneficial.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item? All right, if not, then, are any other further questions for the applicants at this point? Nope. All right, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this item. And any further discussion or comments among the commission members? No? All right. Then, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for an aggregate sales yard if the motion is for approval of subject to, do I need to read all those?
Items 1 through 5 per the staff report.
Items 1 through 5 is prepared by the staff.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
So I have a motion and I have a second. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? That is approved, and that will go to the city council.
June 21st.
Next Tuesday.
Okay, so that will go to the city council meeting on, you said 21st, the 21st, the second?
21st.
Okay, gotcha, on June 21st. So anybody that would like to continue on that, city council has final vote on that matter. All right. And so then we will move on to item 4C.
Item 4C, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately .3 acres of land platted as Lot 16, Block 66 of Miller's Second Edition, also known as 1101 West Crawford Street, from local retail zoning district to SF 7.5 single-family residential zoning district, case number 2022-054Z. This is an aerial of that subject property, just at the corner of West Crawford and South Tone Avenue. And as you can see, it is currently zoned local retail with residential zoning to the west and south of it. This property has already been developed. There is a single-family residence on that property, and the applicant is just trying to get a zoning district that complies with how the property has already been developed. The proposed rezone complies with the comprehensive plan, and staff does recommend approval for the request. I'm present for any questions, and the applicant is as well.
Any questions for the staff? The applicant, like to add anything to?
No, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, the house was built in 1920, it's been a residential home for years. So.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? All right, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this item. Any further comments or discussion among commission members? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval of changing the zoning of the subject property from the local retail zoning district to SF 7.5 single-family residential zoning district.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. That motion is approved. We will move on to item 4D.
Item 4D, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 4.512 acres for property located at 2300 Texoma Drive from the commercial zoning district to the light industrial zoning district, case number 2022-057Z. This is an aerial of the subject property off of Texoma Drive. You have Reese Foods just to the west. And as you can see, this is currently zoned commercial with light industrial around as well as adjacent to the property. The applicant is requesting this rezone in order to reopen the truck and trailer repair center that is currently on the property. Our use regulation chart does require a CUP in the commercial zoning district for this use. And the applicant does plan to develop other portions of this property in a light industrial zoning manner, so staff recommended that they move forward with a rezone for this in order to avoid CUPs in the future. The proposed rezone complies with the comprehensive plan, and it would just be an extension of that light industrial zoning district to the west that is for Reese Foods, and staff recommends approval of the request. I'm present for any questions, and so is the applicant.
All right. Any questions of staff? The applicant like to add anything? No. All right. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? No. I'll close the public hearing portion. And any further discussion? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of changing the zoning of the subject property from commercial to light industrial zoning district.
So I have a motion. Do I have a
And
second?
second.
There we go. There we have a second. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. All right. Then we'll move into item 4E.
Item 4E, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone portions of Lot 2 of the Minshew-Crawford Edition, property ID number 218141, and property ID number 113549 in the DM Farmer Survey Abstract number 433, which are contained within a larger tract of 9.7 acres or so, located at West Crawford Street and South Cathy Drive, from the local retail zoning district to the MF1 multifamily residential zoning district, case number 2022-058Z. This is an aerial of that property, kind of depicting how that property is currently split up. It is zoned local retail currently. The larger tract is already zoned multifamily 1, so this rezone would just be pulling these two portions of the property into that zoning district. The applicant is pursuing this rezone in order to develop the property for an apartment complex. These are they're they're one-story units that they're kind of like duplexes, but they're not duplexes. They're one-story, two-unit dwellings. Sorry. This would all be platted as one property. It would not be individually platted as your duplexes are. So this is an apartment complex rather than individual duplexes. Just to kind of give a different type of multifamily use other than what we are currently seeing with apartment complexes that are elevated. Sorry. While the multifamily 1 zoning district requires a minimum property size of 10 acres, the addition of these two parcels would bring the total acreage to 9.7 acres. Approval of the rezoning would necessitate creation of a planned development to accommodate the smaller acreage. The applicant does intend to develop the property in the with development standards that are in accordance with the MF1 multifamily zoning district. There will need to be improvements made to West Crawford and Cathy Drive as well. These are both very narrow streets, and additional development would require those streets to be reconstructed or improved in some manner. The proposed rezone does comply with the comprehensive plan, and staff does recommend approval. With all that said, I am present for any questions, and so is the applicant.
Any questions for staff?
No, sir.
All right. Applicant?
Good morning. Jesse Sims, 708 West Main, Denison, Texas. Just to touch on a couple of things. So these are two separate parcels that were already zoned MF1 when we obtained the property. For whatever reason, those front pieces of retail don't really match any of the other zoning there. I'm not even sure if you could even fit any, well, I'm certain you couldn't fit any retail on the section to the right. It'd be difficult to fit anything within Crawford. So I think the rezone just makes sense. I did have a question for the commission, though, just regarding that 10-acre stipulation. My question is, both of these sections were already zoned multifamily, and they're not 10 acres. So how does that apply to me when it's already zoned multifamily and it's under 10 acres? So if a PD is necessary, then absolutely, we've done them before. However, it's already zoned multifamily, and it never was 10 acres. One was a 4-acre plot, and the other one was a 6.6-acre plot. So that being said, I don't know if we could discuss that a little bit and see if a PD is really necessary based on that.
So the two tracts that are to the south that are currently zoned MF1, those are grandfathered in. for that multifamily. They're basically non-conforming tracts of a zoning district.
Right.
So if you were to develop those properties as they are, currently, we wouldn't require you to go and obtain more property in order to meet that 10-acre requirement. Because you are bringing in 2 additional tracts that don't meet that minimum acreage, that's where the PD comes into play.
Okay.
And I think that maybe Phyllis, Gerald might have reached out to you or to your engineers and discussed that with them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But that's basically where the PD is coming into play. It's just to accommodate those 2 additional tracts of land.
So
Okay.
if he was not rezoning these, and it was just going to be on those 2 tracks, obviously the access would have to be off Kathy Drive, but
That's correct.
that would not require, that would be basically, that would be where the grandfathered in, but because it's being
Okay.
added, you're incorporating new into the.
Well, not necessarily, Brett, not to interrupt you. That is all one piece of property. I'm not taking 2 separate surveyed pieces of property
Right,
and
but I guess
combining them.
it's-
But the zoning within the survey is changing. So that's where I'm a little
So these
confused.
parcels are split zoned, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
They're 2 different parcels of land, and for whatever reason, someone came through and split zoned those parcels. With the
Right.
northern portion on Crawford being local retail and that little bitty portion on
Yeah.
Kathy being local retail.
Correct.
So they're not separate parcels, but they are split
Separate
zoned.
zoning, split
Yeah.
zone. Okay, fair enough. And I don't have a problem with the PD. I just wanted clarification on that and see if that was something necessary. Also, in my preliminary meeting with the city, there was everyone in the meeting, I think you were there, right? We decided in the meeting, or at least discussed, that there would be no need for road improvements at this time for this development, but in the future, that there were already plans for some potential developments. So now am I hearing that I'm gonna have to do improvements to develop it?
So those discussions, I know in the pre-application meetings, we had mentioned that there was possibilities of those streets with Crawford and Kathy, especially Kathy, would need to be improved upon. I don't know, from a planning side, we never really landed on whether those would need to be improved or not, because it's Public Works that has to make that call.
Right.
In this meeting and with council, our recommendation will be that those are improved, because in order to accommodate the development and the additional traffic that you're going to be bringing to those streets, we recommend some sort of improvement be done. What that improvement looks like, how far you have to go, those kinds of things, I don't think we've narrowed that down with other staff members.
Okay.
But we want the commission as well as council to understand that these streets are subpar for that development. And for any other development to the east, we would recommend the same thing.
Okay.
Having grown up in that area, I would use that word to describe that street 30 years ago.
Right, but
Crawford Street west of 75, that's a really good word to use to describe Crawford west of 75, this subpar.
yeah, and I would agree with that as well,
Yeah.
Spence. But at the same time, I know that there is a master plan to expand Crawford and do things in the future. And us good old homegrown developers, man, I've spent a lot of money on infrastructure for Denison, and I don't have a problem with it. But, we just want to try to manage it as well as we can. So, 96 dwellings in that area with as much growth going out there will have minimal impact based on what everybody else is doing around Gateway Village and things. So anyways, we don't have to chase that too much. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them regarding just the rezone.
Just to clarify, the staff report does say improvements will be needed. It doesn't necessarily tie you to them. So
Correct.
whatever, we just want to make sure that this board, as well as council and any other staff that may hear about this case, that they're aware that those are issues for this development.
Fair enough.
It doesn't negate that you can't get your zoning. It's just things that we want to bring
Right.
to the forefront.
Yeah, and I want to know it on the
So-
front as well, so I
And
appreciate it.
My recommendation is moving forward, make sure that you, our staff, of course, would help you with this, but I would get with Public Works and try and determine what that would look like for you on your end as
Yeah.
a requirement.
Fair enough. Y'all good?
Anything else, Jesse?
No, I'm good, thank you. Appreciate it.
Would anyone else like to speak on this request? We did have comments that were submitted from, I did have one from American Funeral Home, Malcolm Gage, which is a neighboring property at 4312 West Crawford, supporting the request. We did have two opposing, Mrs. Crane and Mrs. Hill, who are on Kathy Drive, basically saying West Crawford isn't a road that can handle additional traffic, and opposing because don't want a lot of traffic coming down the road, and they already speed down the road, and it's also, I can't read that. Can you read that? Let's see what that says.
The traffic will only get worse if it was rezoned. Also, crime can,
Crime? Oh.
yeah,
Okay.
crime can go up, and I don't want that either. I believe that's what that says. This person must be a doctor. Yeah, or an attorney. Yeah, either one. Yeah. It's very true.
Okay, yeah, so, please note those. Any other, would anyone else like to speak on this request? All right, then I'll close the public hearing portion. I would just add, I guess that there's obviously some concern about the roads, and it's something that, probably does need to be looked into, but as far as the particular zoning part of it, it makes sense. They could go and do it, what they're doing right now without adding these two, but then it just makes even more traffic problem by forcing them to go have an entrance on Kathy Drive. And so, and I don't think that, the retail zoning on there, when they did that, I guess they thought that there was gonna be something going along there, but that's not really necessarily a retail corridor.
Right.
And I don't know that I don't think that retail zoning makes sense. And so I think this makes sense as far as the overall development of that. And it is multifamily, but it's not a huge, 4-story apartment complex that's going to really, put a huge additional burden on and obviously there will be additional traffic there, but,
It's also gonna add to the tax roll of the city of Denison too.
and that is true. That's my comment. Anything else? Anybody else?
No, sir.
Any other questions, comments? All right, then I will entertain a motion on this.
I move to recommend approval of changing the zoning of the subject property from local retail zoning district to planned development MF1, multifamily 1 residential zoning district with the following stipulation: the minimum project size will be 9.7 acres.
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Do I, sorry, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we will move on to 4F.
Item 4F, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to amend the 2F two-family, MF1 multifamily, and MF2 multifamily 2 and related sections of the zoning ordinance regulating duplex and townhome development, case number 2022-059Z. At our meeting held on May 24th, this commission called for a public hearing for zoning amendments for these zoning districts in relation to duplexes and townhome development. Staff is requesting that we table this item until our meeting held on June 26th. We're just needing to review and prepare those proposed amendments, and just need to have a little bit more time. So we're asking for you, this commission, to table that request.
Have have y'all made any discussion with any of the local, I guess, builders or so forth on this at this point yet?
We have not. We, as internally, we're kind of navigating these amendments, trying to be a little bit more careful with them. But right now, we don't have those amendments. We haven't made any amendments. And because of that, because we haven't discussed with any local builders,
Okay.
we're asking for.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I know sometimes it has it, and then we end up kind of creating some other issues,
Right.
at least initially, when it doesn't. And there, sometimes there's some things that we probably could use their input on, and it makes things go a little smoother versus doing it and then come back, oh, well, should have done this, like the fence thing we did on the corners and different things like that.
Right.
That, when you have, obviously they probably want as less regulation as possible, but I think there's some things where they can provide input of like, okay, this is doable or this is not doable, and at least then it helps with not being blame the city for just not wanting to let anything happen.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to avoid.
Exactly, right.
All right, well, good.
Just make it reasonable for everybody, right?
Sure, right. All right. Well, do I have a motion on that?
Put away my readers so somebody else. Okay, well.
I move we table, case zoning, case number 2022-059Z0 until the July 22nd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? I don't think there's gonna be anybody in that. All right. That is tabled to the next, or to the second July meeting. That's right. Correct. That's right. All right. Any further business? No staff updates today? Yes, sir. All right. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second now. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. 10:48.
Have a good day, Mr. Ruth.